The unexpected guest. Our lives were already a whirlwind of responsibilities. My husband Aaron and I both worked long hours to sustain our modest apartment, a place that never seemed quite big enough for the three of us. Aaron, myself, and our lively 5-year-old son Jamie. Yet somehow we managed to find joy in the small things. Aaron's cheerful whistling while preparing breakfast, Jamie's infectious laughter filling the rooms, and my quiet evenings with a book made our lives feel complete, albeit a bit chaotic. One drizzly evening in late autumn, as the leaves clung stubbornly to the trees, our doorbell rang. This in itself was unusual. We weren't the type of family to have many visitors. When I opened the door, the sight before me left me momentarily speechless. There stood Uncle Leo, Aaron's uncle, clutching a worn leather suitcase in one hand and a cane in the other. His face, weathered and marked by age, held a mix of hope and hesitation. "Uncle Leo," I said, my voice tinged with surprise. He smiled faintly, revealing teeth that hadn't seen a dentist in quite some time. "I hope I'm not intruding, dear. I'm in a bit of a bind and thought perhaps you could spare me some room for a while." Aaron appeared behind me, his brows furrowing in confusion. "Uncle Leo, what's happened?" Leo sighed deeply. "I've lost my place. The landlord sold the building, and the new owners gave me a week to leave. I didn't know where else to go. How could we refuse?" The man looked so vulnerable, clutching his suitcase like it held his entire world. We exchanged glances, Aaron and I, and silently agreed. "Of course, Uncle Leo," Aaron said, stepping forward to help him with his bag. "Come in. You're always welcome here." Our small living room became even smaller with the addition of Leo's belongings. Jamie, ever curious, peered around the corner, his eyes wide as he took in the unfamiliar figure. "Who's that?" Jamie asked in his innocent, high-pitched voice. "This is Uncle Leo, sweetie," I explained, kneeling down to Jamie's level. "He's going to stay with us for a little while." "Does he like dinosaurs?" Jamie asked, clutching his favorite plastic stegosaurus. Leo chuckled, his laughter a raspy sound. "I love dinosaurs. Do you have any books about them?" And just like that, Jamie warmed to him. The child's natural curiosity and friendliness were a gift that seemed to ease Leo's evident discomfort. The first few days were an adjustment, to say the least. Uncle Leo had a certain way about him that took some getting used to. He was opinionated and set in his ways, often commenting on how things were done differently in his day. For example, when Aaron made his usual Saturday pancakes, Leo remarked, "Back in my time, we didn't use these fancy boxed mixes. We made everything from scratch." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that he was our guest, and his remarks were likely born out of nostalgia rather than criticism. But as the days turned into weeks, the strain began to show. Our apartment, already cramped, now felt like a sardine can. Jamie's toys, Leo's suitcase, and our usual clutter seemed to multiply overnight. Leo's cane thudded against the wooden floor as he moved about, a sound that quickly became both familiar and grating. He took to watching old black and white movies on our small TV, the volume turned up just a little too high. Yet, for all the challenges, there were moments of unexpected warmth. One evening, as Jamie struggled with a particularly tricky jigsaw puzzle, it was Leo who sat down to help him. The two of them, heads bent together over the pieces, made a picture of intergenerational harmony that melted my frustration. Over time, we began to learn more about Uncle Leo's life. He had been a mechanic for most of his working years, a job he spoke about with both pride and regret. "I loved fixing things," he said one evening, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "But it's not an easy life. Long hours, grease under your nails, and not much to show for it in the end." His stories captivated Jamie, who would listen wide-eyed as Leo recounted tales of rebuilding engines and driving cross-country in a beat-up old truck. For Aaron and me, these stories served as a reminder of the sacrifices that often go unnoticed. One rainy afternoon, as I was folding laundry, Leo shuffled into the room. "Do you need help?" he asked. I hesitated. It wasn't often that someone offered to help with chores. "If you could pair the socks, that would be great," I said. He nodded and sat down, his gnarled hands surprisingly deft as he sorted through the pile. "You know," he said after a while, "you and Aaron are doing a great job with Jamie. He's a bright kid." His words caught me off guard. "Thank you, Leo. That means a lot. Raising kids is no small feat," he continued. I never had the chance to have my own family. It's nice to be part of one, even if only for a while." There was a vulnerability in his voice that made me see him in a new light. Uncle Leo wasn't just a grumpy old man. He was someone who had faced his own share of disappointments and was trying in his own way to find connection and purpose. As weeks turned into months, we found a rhythm. Leo began contributing in small but meaningful ways. He insisted on doing the dishes after dinner, a task I gladly relinquished. He taught Jamie how to tie his shoelaces and shared with Aaron the secret to fixing a leaky faucet. Slowly but surely, his presence began to feel less like an intrusion and more like an addition. Still, there were challenges. Leo's health was not the best, and there were days when he seemed particularly frail. On such days, he would retreat to his room, emerging only for meals. During one of these quieter days, I found myself worrying about what would happen when he eventually left. The thought surprised me. When he had first arrived, I had counted down the days until we could have our space back. Now, the idea of him leaving felt bittersweet. One evening, as we all sat around the dinner table, Leo raised his glass of water. "I just want to say thank you," he began, his voice steady but emotional. You've opened your home to me during one of the most difficult times in my life. I don't have much to give, but I want you to know that your kindness has meant the world to me." Aaron and I exchanged glances, both of us moved by his words. Jamie, ever the innocent, clapped his hands and said, "Can Uncle Leo stay forever?" Leo chuckled. "We'll see, little man. We'll see." In the months that followed, our family grew in ways I hadn't anticipated. Leo's presence taught us patience and resilience. He reminded us of the importance of compassion, not just for others but for ourselves. Life was far from perfect, but it was richer, fuller, and more meaningful with him in it. As I tucked Jamie into bed one night, he looked up at me with his big, curious eyes. "Mommy, are you happy Uncle Leo is here?" I thought for a moment before answering. "Yes, sweetheart. He's taught us a lot about what it means to be a family." Jamie smiled, content with my answer. And as I turned off the light and closed the door, I felt a sense of gratitude that I hadn't expected when Uncle Leo first appeared on our doorstep. As winter gave way to spring, Uncle Leo's health began to improve. He spent more time outdoors, enjoying the fresh air and even helping Jamie plant a small garden in the corner of our building's yard. The sight of the two of them digging in the soil, laughing and talking, became a cherished memory for me. Leo's influence extended beyond Jamie. Aaron began to see him as more than just an old relative. They spent evenings discussing everything from life's hardships to football games, finding common ground despite their generational differences. One sunny afternoon, as Leo and Jamie worked on the garden, Aaron and I sat on the balcony, sipping tea. "You know," Aaron said, "Leo's taught me more about family than I ever expected. I'm glad he's here." I nodded, watching Jamie's face light up as Leo handed him a tiny sprout to plant. "Me too," I replied. Sometimes the unexpected guests are the ones who leave the most lasting impressions. Eventually, Leo found a small apartment nearby, thanks to Aaron's help. When he moved out, it wasn't the end of his presence in our lives. He remained a regular visitor, and Jamie insisted on calling him every evening to talk about his day. Life returned to a semblance of normalcy, but it was different now. Better, fuller. Uncle Leo had become a permanent part of our family in spirit, if not in residence. And as I watched Jamie grow under the loving gaze of his great-uncle, I knew that the lessons we'd learned from Leo's unexpected arrival would stay with us forever.
Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and share our channel Magic Mingle with your friends to enjoy more magical stories.